finals for Age of Empires 4. This is the moment it's been building towards. Mpuppypaw versus General Mate's MarineLorD in a best of 5 when we kick off on regions. MarineLorD with the Delhi and Mpuppypaw on the French.
Very excited. I'm looking to see what Mpuppypaw does here. Does he go for a 2TC? Does he go for an aggressive gameplay here? Starting with 3 villagers on the landmark makes me think, okay, he's going to go for a wheelbarrow here, maybe a little bit more defensive, at least in the early game.
You know, I'm looking at the spawn straight away, and it feels like Mpuppypaw, you'd expect him to play aggressive. He has to play aggressive. Look at that double gold spawn. Both on top of each other for Ed. It's so uncomfortable. We've seen how regions can be really harsh for this. Like, MarineLorD got something similar, but when you look at his tree lines, it's much more easy to defend that.
Yeah, and I think this matchup in general, Mpuppypaw is going to be setting the tempo of the game for the first 10, maybe 8 minutes of well, the game.
Yep.
And then MarineLorD kind of, once he gets that Spearman mass, Archer, maybe Ghazi mass, we're going to kind of just see what he wants to do in this game. Does he want to go Castle Age? Does he want to push that feudal pressure? And we do see the Dome of Faith, which signals to me it's going to be a little bit more defensive this game.
It's going to be interesting as well. I think in some ways it makes sense. Like Tower Victory, you can roll over your opponent or you can get rolled over. And the thing with French is every time you take a subpar fight, that faster producing town center is accelerating a gradual lead for the French.
Yeah, and that's kind of why maybe as French here you don't have to go for that second TC against Dome of Faith. Yes, MarineLorD is going to be defensive here, but if Mpuppypaw can keep him in his base, stop him from getting those sacred sites, that passive villager increased generation is going to allow him to get an eco advantage in this game.
Have you guys been prepping pro scouts for these type of situations? Because I know this map is a bit weird for it, but French do get a big discount on that tech.
That's always a possibility for French here. We haven't been preparing that, but I mean, Delhi, for example, gets free pro scouts, so possibly doing it yourself will take that away from them, right?
Yeah, because we've seen situations where Delhi players will try to lean to Ghazi even against French because it gives you an opportunity to punish their movement out into the map.
I mean, definitely. I think against French, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to go Ghazi here. I would be a little bit surprised to see that, but he would likely do that later in the game because you're going to need to produce extra scouts anyway, right, for that pro tech scouts.
And obviously the expectation is always going to be Spearman opening here. The Knights are just too dominant. Like, it's that effect of the first one. I'm expecting... Has MarineLorD already gone for the textiles? Because I feel like in this type of matchup, you're almost guaranteed to lose at least one villager.
Well, if you lose one villager and you go textiles, then you're losing one villager anyway, right? So maybe you take the gamble and say, I'm good, I'm MarineLorD, I won't lose a villager, right?
It feels like a MarineLorD thing, right? Like, I've seen so many players just go, I mean, it feels inevitable in the next 10 minutes, right? Let's just do it. Especially with the Delhi, like, I don't know how you feel about it. I still think textiles is a bit busted on this Civ, considering, especially with this build, you're researching in about 15 seconds, and you're not paying 150 resources like other Civs would.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think at some point you should be going textiles, but obviously early on in the game, it's going to hit harder if you lose a villager than later in the game, so I think he's going to at least delay that until, let's say, 10 minutes in the game, right?
Cheeky little wall's coming up now. Of course, that is going to connect to the berries. Knight is not going to be able to dive in because the Spearman is waiting there. I think his spear through the wall gave him away a bit there, mate, but you know, looking at the circulation here, it feels like a fairly easy area to wall. This first Knight is the biggest issue I think MarineLorD's going to have in this opening.
Yeah, and I think he's doing a very good job at defending here. He's actually going to go Ghazi now, which signals to me he's going to go for a more aggressive gameplay here. He's not going to be able to wall those sacred sites. Mpuppypaw has actually started walling the deal already, which means going to be more difficult to go for that pro scouts, right? Yeah. If it's walled, you can't pick up that deer.
Now what's interesting here as well, especially the Dome of Faith build, is the optimization around spears. As long as you're outnumbering the Knights, you can peel back the injured and heal with the scholars, right? It leaves you very efficient for this Ghazi transition that's coming in the following minutes.
Yeah, obviously the Dome of Faith doesn't give you the plus 20%, I think, to infantry.
It's 15%. We don't trust the UI tooltip.
Okay, well, 15%, so the Spearmen are not going to be as strong as they normally would be against Knights, but Spearmen in general, very high multiplier against Knights, so it's not going to matter too much, I think.
And it's also the brace, right? The brace is the biggest pincher. Stun them, hold them in place, stab them again, and you know, if you've got a few Spearmen together, you shift Kebab the Knight. So Scout knows that the deer gathering is going on, but at this stage, it's a little bit too early to do anything about it. Does it feel like Mpuppypaw needs this much walling early on? Because we did see him wall the backside of his base, even though the Delhi, while they're going to go Ghazi, they're going to be quite delayed moving towards that.
I think it's fine. Walling in general is very cheap in this game. The most expensive part is probably moving the villager out there, and you can see that he's going for the berries behind that as well. What I do see, and I think is very good for MarineLorD, is walling that top site there. That's going to allow him to pretty much guarantee that site, you know, in a few minutes when he gets that Sanctity up.
It would be ironic if puppypaw now walled around the walls and we got a nice kind of layered onion going here. But I mean, this is always the perk with the deli, right? You know, it sucks that you have to go spearman. I think like it's the worst unit you want to have to open up with deli. Ghazi is obviously the best. But you do get to wall in these sacred sites, and that's something nicely tucked on this map. It looks like puppypaw is just going really gung-ho with those walls on the west side though, so instead of just focusing on locking the sacred site, he wants all those deer denied.
Well, he wants the deer denied, and obviously he gets them himself, right? And the bull as well. Maybe he walls it in, maybe he actually extends it all the way to his base. I would be surprised if he does that, but it is a possibility, right? So.
I mean, I know he used to practice with Magic. I want to call this a Magic type wall, you know?
Magic would call it a wham wall, but, you know.
You copy each other. So we've got a good rotation so far. No blood has been drawn. It's kind of crazy. You can feel the intensity because you have to remember this is a best of 5. So every game truly matters, and just one night can be the difference in this particular matchup.
Yeah, and it's a very slow start. I think this matchup in particular, I mean, if you lose a few knights, if you lose a few spearmen, that's a very snowbally fight, right? And puppypaw is deciding not to take this fight. Probably a wise idea. Those knights are so expensive, the spearmen are cheap. Just going to run away from now.
Pro Scouts now on the way from MarineLorD. We're probably going to be about, I'd say, a minute away, maybe less. I think he's got about 4 skulls at home at least. One of them's probably garrisoned in the production buildings, 2 in... Oh no, he's got 4 in there, so this will be really quick. Spin Brace is going to be there though. So Knights are going to try to take the clash. Now, it's important to always outnumber these Knights. If you don't, you will get wailed on because you do stun yourself when you go and brace with the spears.
Yeah, and puppypaw probably could take this fight against this 3 spearmen here, but he needs chivalry, right? And if you can't heal back those knights, then you won't be able to take a fight later in the game.
And puppypaw up to 5 archers. I think like you want to start prepping the blacksmiths around what, about 11, 12 archers is when it feels good.
Yeah, 11, 12 archers when you can one-shot those spearmen, right? That's and that Lucifron Vortex did this very well, right?
Yeah.
They would make the perfect amount of archers to just one-shot, kite away, one-shot. Yeah.
I think this is the tricky thing with the deli now is like with the old Tower of Victory build, you had these windows that were more apparent against blacksmith plays because it was very expensive to add in the blacksmiths. But now with these new Dome of Faith builds, this double blacksmith play is going to pay off so quickly for MarineLorD.
Yeah, and I expect he's probably going to be playing maybe a little heavier feudal than I thought. I mean, going for that double blacksmith play makes me think, okay, I mean, you don't want those upgrades, you want to fight in feudal a little bit, so you don't need to rush Castle Age anyway, right?
And you know, the Ghazi, I wonder if the timing is a little bit late. Obviously you can burn through these walls, but by the time they're going to be really rotating looking for picks, it feels like this wham wall is going to be complete.
I mean, very good walls here from puppypaw. Oh,
Spearman?
Gonna lose a knight there, not ideal for puppypaw. In fact, hasn't got that much damage done in general, so...
It's tough as well because, like, you know, he's quite fortunate that MarineLorD went this hard into spears. Usually, like some matchups, you see a few more Ghazi. That becomes a problem because then you can body block the knights and pick them one by one. And I think that's the situation where French starts to feel a bit bullied in this matchup.
Yeah, well, I mean, the spearmen are very, strong in general. Delhi kind of go for that. They can bowl that sacred site. There's no problem for MarineLorD going 26 spearmen here. It's going to be fine for presumably a while now, right?
Yeah, I think looking at the food though, how much does MarineLorD really have access to now? Because he has got the blackberries. I think he's got about 6 sheep left. So there is that kind of impeding point where he's probably going to have to consider carving up the map himself, starting to divide it with walls and probably leaning towards this berry side.
Yeah, so food is going to be the most important resource at this stage in the game in general. Feudal Age, especially when you're going this Spearman Ghazi type comp, you're exhausting your food very fast. MarineLorD has that back berries, but as we mentioned earlier, those deer at the top left side are walled in.
At this point, what does it feel like MarineLorD's win condition is in this situation?
I think MarineLorD just needs to secure some food on the map, get to Castle Age, and I mean, he's going to be fine in this game.
And you think puppypaw has to lock him into this feudal situation, kind of starve him out slowly?
Yeah, exactly. Dome of Faith doesn't scale well into Feudal Age just because, yes, you have the scholars, but at some point in Feudal Age, you have researched all those techs, so it becomes quite insignificant, right?
Yeah, and you can bring them to heal, but it feels really finicky, especially when you're leading cavalry, because you've got to catch up, right? And against knights in particular, you kind of get sniped. Speaking of which, the knights have moved in to start burning down the walls. Has to move away quickly here, though. Almost pinched himself into a corner, so we'll shift off that. Won't be able to decap the Sacred Site, and of course that is going to give a beneficial trickle of gold still over to MarineLorD.
Yeah, and that's why those walls are so powerful, because yes, you can break them, but if you're keeping those knights in those walls, it can be a very bad experience for those knights, of which you do not want to keep them in there.
You cheeky thief. While that's all going on, MarineLorD just snuck out for a casual deer.
Yeah, and I think he's actually taken all the deer from his main deer pack beside his base. Again, once he exhausts those berries, once he exhausts his own deer, now he has moved to the top side of the berries here, but that is where 1puppypaw is going to be meaning to attack next, right?
Now that boar, of course, is going to be pointless for MarineLorD there, as the deli can't gather from it, but, you know, maybe a knight comes in and makes him a little bit angry. We've seen that happen plenty of times before.
Yeah, at this point, MarineLorD is starting to go into archers, and if he intends to play Feudal Age here, he is going to need to heavily go archers here. However,
this doesn't feel good, right? Like, the concave is coming, the archers might be overexposed, Ghazi do get on top of them, the knights have to hold back. There's just simply so many spears here. MarineLorD has had enough of waiting around, so knights are going to try to hold near the choke point, the stone outcropping. It's going to be a pullback again, but the archer count just doesn't feel good enough for 1puppypaw to break through this spearman mass.
Yeah, there's just so many spearmen here, and once you, I mean, you can't take a fight with those knights when you have so many spearmen on MarineLorD's side.
No, and it's that we talked about this tricky detail where Ghazi will then start running past, get in the way of the knights, and then all of a sudden your food, your fish food for these spears. Instead, he's sick of checking on them. He's sick of chasing them. He knows there's food gathering going on because logically French are going to want to be on their deer, and on regions, you know the one location they're going to be.
Yeah, and 1puppypaw is kind of going back towards this wall here that he's made, but I mean, he's not going to be able to defend that. What I'd like to see is maybe go to MarineLorD's side of the map and try to get some counter damage, because at this point, that's a lot of spearmen, right?
Yeah, I think it's your only option, right? And then you just try to rescale the archers. So it's tricky because we've seen MarineLorD can be very good at this, forcing you to react to him. And I always say proactivity over reactivity. Right now, it feels like 1puppypaw is stuck in a reactive state because of that bad fight.
Yeah, he definitely is. And he has to get that archer mass up against, right? He is losing some villagers here to be expected. I mean, he can't defend that, right? Again, maybe he can get some counter damage on MarineLorD's side of the map. He's trying to do that now, right? And
the nice thing, of course, is because you're French, you've at least padded your economy. You can afford a few losses. We can see he's still ahead by 2 villages due to that 17-second production time instead of the 20-second on a TC. But maybe we'll see a fish over here. We are seeing outposts going up, as should be expected. Delhi typically go for that double outpost layering to protect if they've got enough villages out there. So MarineLorD understands the play. The problem is against this many knights, a tower is not going to feel protected against the torches.
Yeah, well, MarineLorD will be sending his reinforcements to these berries, right? So maybe that's enough to deal with the knights. As you see here, his reinforcements are coming. He's actually moving his entire army there, saying, okay, I'm just going to play this safe. I'm going to defend my villagers at home. I took a really good fight. I don't need to push my advantage here, right?
It's kind of classic MarineLorD. You can see he's mattering up the castle. He likes to do this. If he thinks he's taking a slight lead, he plays the percentage game. He doesn't look for that knockout punch. He says, I can now weigh you down because your fatigue bar is a little worse than mine.
Yeah, and he's actually not even going too many archers here. He's staying with 37 spearmen, 19 Ghazis, which is very difficult to deal with if you don't have a significant archer mass.
It's the crazy thing about spears, right? Like we always talk about archers feeling good and how you can, count spears, but when these numbers get big, and this could be bigger, the knights, they're trying to deal with a Ghazi, but this feels like a bait. MarineLorD getting in position for the surround. The reveal comes through. The knights need to shift north just in time there. So 1puppypaw switched in, dodges death, but now, because of the position they're in, MarineLorD can try to hit that backside berry mass.
Yeah, and again, 1puppypaw is in this position where he can't really take that fight. He needs to be doing something else with these knights, and he's taking fights against spearmen here, but, I mean, you really don't want to be doing that when your opponent is pushing your base.
We have got the dive, though. Those 3 knights, they're trying to be the 3 musketeers. Unfortunately, it's not enough for the reinforcing spearmen. Ghazi are now in. 1puppypaw has a lot of villagers on that wood line, and he doesn't have the capacity to defend against this. Ghazi, they get the backstab. 1puppypaw, there's simply no reaction to this. That's going to be 8 villagers, maybe more, going down.
Yeah, that's extremely bad. I mean, that's something 1puppypaw just didn't see. I mean, he's getting a little bit of counter damage on these Ghazi here, but
It feels moot, right? It's not enough for what you just lost here. It feels like PuppyPaw needs to fish the multiple eco. That idea with the 3 knights was cool, but I almost feel like he needs to take the few knights he has, break them up into 3 different groups, and just go hunting.
Well, I mean, MarineLorD's deciding to stay feudal age here. If PuppyPaw can take a very good fight, maybe he can come back into this game. I mean, again, he still has 9 knights, 42 archers. Like, he's not out of this game by any means.
But it feels like you need to be in a position to do damage, right? So, like, you know, French are usually dominant in the mid-map, so are Delhi. In this kind of situation, it kind of feels like PuppyPaw is having to wait in his base, and MarineLorD is taking advantage of that to get the extra deer, to offset that starvation point that we said was going to be key to him finding success.
Yeah, and exactly. I think MarineLorD has kind of prepared maybe this build for this map. Obviously, he has those berries that he's kind of siphoning up on that top side, and he's going to have food for days here.
Oh, yeah. Do you think there's a world in which he just tries to sneak castle here? Like, does it feel like MarineLorD had an opportunity to go up already?
He definitely has, but I mean, he just doesn't need to, right? He's MarineLorD. He likes to play that safe game. Maybe if he goes castle age, PuppyPaw takes that really good fight, and he somehow loses the game here. So MarineLorD doesn't need to, and he's not going to.
We have textiles coming in from PuppyPaw to try and minimize the damage of the Ghazi raid in the future. Archer count is really big, so you have to show a little bit of respect, because we've seen time and time again where archers feel king is when you reach the base. These choke points make it hard for melee to win.
Yeah, and I think this is the critical mass of archers where it's really difficult for Ghazi even to get into that back line of archers and actually take a really good fight. 25 Ghazi is a lot, but you're going to be front-running that with knights, so I mean, potentially it's quite good for PuppyPaw here if he can take a fight before MarineLorD gets to castle age.
Just a defector here, folks. Don't worry about him. They're so cheap. Who cares? It's like 65 gold now. But we're back out in the mid-map here. Ghazi are going to march in. Are the archers good enough this time? They do not have the support of the knights, so this is a mere melee mass diving in. The meantime, the knights are trying to cut reinforcements. The Ghazi count is getting culled, but PuppyPaw is losing a lot of archers for it.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. The knights are not here to support these archers. Yes, they're not taking such bad trades, but at the end of the day, you kill the Ghazi, the spearmen are still left.
You're not killing villages, right? Like, this is the big problem. These knights, they need to find that eco to make this a beneficial trade. Count for PuppyPaw is down to 30 archers. Spearman is still looking healthy. And yeah, those Ghazi are bruised up. But this is going to be the key paramount moment. Like, MarineLorD, he hasn't got enough to guard now. He could end up losing a few villages. If PuppyPaw can scout maybe 6 more here, all of a sudden you feel quite content with the next few minutes as French.
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually. PuppyPaw took a pretty decent fight there. Didn't have that knight support, but
he's still going. Wow. He's hunting the backside. Knights are going to jump in. The textiles should help out a little, but the idle time alone pains him here. MarineLorD was in the midst of a farm transition and prepping more archers, so losing out on that wood is going to sting.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he's transitioning this hard into farms. Like we mentioned, he has those berries, so this is almost not necessary here, and he's actually going to be losing a few villagers on top of that.
Min-maxed it at the end. Of course, the 4 musketeers are ready to go to their deathbed, but they've definitely achieved a lot here for PuppyPaw. A grim situation after that Ghazi raid, but now when you look at the eco, 56 to 58. The lead is shrinking. The archers have marched up, and we talked about this. When you reach the enemy base, you can hold them hostage with the archer blob.
Yeah, and I mean, this Raido stage of the game has gone pretty good for PuppyPaw, I'd say. And yes, MarineLorD is still on these berries, but he has heavily transitioned into the farms here, which I'm not even sure PuppyPaw has done the same. I think he's done a little bit, but yeah, not as much, right?
I think maybe 12 to 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 15, I'd say here. So it's not terrible for PuppyPaw. He does still have the deer on the side, but MarineLorD still has that berry mass, and it's almost like PuppyPaw should be there, but we've seen what happens when you try to play archers into this open battlefield area. This fight could potentially be good, but you'd need some knights here. The problem is PuppyPaw only has 4 in total, so although the Ghazi numbers are limited, they're absorbing the blows and allowing those spearmen to gap close.
Well, even if the spearman gap goes against the archers, what are they going to do, right? But, I mean, PuppyPaw is doing a very good job at kind of thinning the Ghazi numbers, and you can see in Q, MarineLorD actually has 6. He had 9 Ghazis. He's really trying to get that number back up again, right?
It's fragile state, right? Because that farm transition, you can't afford to just keep double pumping Ghazi, so you're slowing it down a little. We're seeing him pad in archers, which I kind of like here, right? They're units that won't die as easily. Your blob might shrink, but let's say your spearman count goes down to half. PuppyPaw doesn't really have a knight mass anymore.
No, he doesn't. And MarineLorD does have 31 spearmen, right? Not really going to be that useful against 4 knights, maybe a few more here, but I mean, if you look at the food food per minute,
Yeah.
PuppyPaw has actually reached 1400, whereas earlier, he really didn't have that great food per minute. So that's definitely a stage where PuppyPaw is kind of coming back into this game.
It's intriguing. We talked about that passive kind of advantage with the French. They produce out of the TC quicker, so it kind of creeps up on you. It can supplement the issue of farm transitions, especially in a Delhi matchup in particular. Speaking of which, Delhi are trying to cut off the raiding group here, so we'll try to just find the split forces of PuppyPaw. That berry mass is definitely a priority. I think the thing I like that's now starting to happen is PuppyPaw is starting to shift attention away from the deer stacks over to the berry mass, and we're seeing him creep the night count back up behind this.
Puppy actually cheeky got a decap in
Yep.
during that time. Probably shouldn't have, but you know, that's just something that MarineLorD's doing so many things at once. He maybe didn't even re-wall that sacred site there.
Does it feel like MarineLorD should just be going in? Does it feel like he's at a stage where he's being maybe a bit too defensive?
Honestly, I think yes, and I think he could have, like you said many times, gone for that castle rage, especially when you have as many farms as MarineLorD does. He really is staying with this feudal age gameplay. Finally transitioning to those archers, but again, 45 versus 18, it's not enough at this stage in the game.
And the blob maybe losing their quality a little bit, back up to double-digit knights, and this is where it gets scary when you consider MarineLorD is split. He's got a huge blob of army outside of PuppyPaw's base. He's got a reactionary force defending, but he still has that berry mass area that's kind of reaching the depletion point where he's going to have to shift to the new ones, and that's where you can start to leak a few villages. But in return, MarineLorD is in position. I love this. He shifts around the backside. Make sure those reactions come in a little bit too late. There's a counter raid attempt here, but this damage is huge. MarineLorD once again reducing PuppyPaw's economy and keeping him behind by 10 villages now.
Yeah, that's so bad for PuppyPaw. You see his archers going on the other side of the map, but archers just aren't as strong as raiding as Spearman Ghazi are. I just don't think he's going to be able to get the damage that MarineLorD done here.
He's hunting deeper. This is what we were just asking. MarineLorD maybe sensed it as well. Like, why am I chilling? Why am I going 100 military here? It's time to send it full divide. He's heading around the back. He's checked the backside where the ball was at. He's getting a little bit suspicious. PuppyPaw did dodge to the north side, has wood gathering there, but the predictable area is on the back here. When you get wood all condensed in this area, it's going to give an easy raid point for MarineLorD to now dive.
Yeah, I think, again, PuppyPaw is not really where he needs to be in this game. He needs to be either defending or in MarineLorD's farm.
He's wasting all his
and
time in fortified outposts with archers, right? Like, I mean, you can kill them, but it takes 1,750 shots to kill them. That's a long wait in this situation. Farms on the backside getting idled up as well is going to also impact PuppyPaw's reproduction rate on this night count.
Yeah, and you can see in the screen there, MarineLorD's still doing damage in PuppyPaw's base, whereas, yes, PuppyPaw is doing some damage, but not as much as MarineLorD, or as much as he'd like to be doing.
You're losing like 10 villages and killing 5, right? And even with the faster producing TC, it doesn't make up the difference here. Villages now shuffling even further out to Danger Town. Guardian reinforcements are going to try to cut off the archers. Knights looking to block that out. We'll have to go into the clash. The spearman count is really not that big, so a really good fight here for PuppyPaw. But you have to remember, MarineLorD still has half of his army camping in the back of PuppyPaw's base.
Yeah, and what you can see here, the story, PuppyPaw has 368 food per minute. MarineLorD has almost 1,000 now, right?
That's ludicrous.
So PuppyPaw really needs to do some damage soon. Either take this army out and go towards his base, or kill some villagers, right?
I think PuppyPaw needs to equip all these villagers with Fitbits. They'd be setting high scores at this point. They've spent so much time running in the last few minutes. He's barely gathering at all. That's why these numbers are looking so underwhelming. Finally, things do begin to move towards PuppyPaw's Imperial army of Frenchmen here. The problem is the numbers are not going to favor him as the reinforcing wave of Delhi come in. Tries to shift away. The Knights are not going to be able to frontline, and that means the Archers are going to be left behind to do it. Ghazi just forcing them out further as he dives deeper. Double the military power here, and PuppyPaw's power is waning in this first game.
Yeah, and this is a fight PuppyPaw needed to take a bit early on this game. MarineLorD really benefit from that bigger eco, and you're kind of showing here, it's just not paying off.
I think this surely should be it. I mean, MarineLorD now with a 12 villager lead. PuppyPaw's entire army about to get decimated. After that, we're talking about 20 Ghazi that can still raid, a safe berry economy, and you're now in a predictable position. You set up those farms, you could set up other ones, but you don't want to. So where are we going to see MarineLorD go next? Back to that corner to camp the economy.
Yeah, and you can see PuppyPaw is not happy here. I think this kind of spells the end for him. I mean, maybe he'll try to come back in this game once again, but 13 archers, 4 knights. It's gonna be an uphill battle here.
It would require MarineLorD to probably go for a coffee break, it feels like. You know, I think MarineLorD could now just go for the castle. I think that's the safe play here, right? Like, you could dive and castle because your military lead is now substantially larger.
Yeah, and I think you may be, I mean, that's exactly what he might be doing, right? 1,600 food per minute.
It just kind of organically happens, right? When you take a fight like that, you look down and you go, oh, I can afford a Lamborghini.
Yeah, and PuppyPaw trying to do some additional damage with these knights here, just, I mean, almost dying to MarineLorD's reinforcements. It's just not enough units at this point.
I mean, he's done a good job with a few knights he's had. It's almost like every time PuppyPaw has a lot of knights, the great things are not happening, but as soon as he's down to a few knights, he finds these great raids, right? Chips 5 villages, 6 villages here. It kind of looks like he claws his way back in, but it's a big uphill battle at this stage. I think MarineLorD, with this army size, should just start to shift into those farmlands again. The few knights are going to try to distract, but you know, before we saw MarineLorD reacting with, say, a third of the army. Now he can react with a tenth.
Yeah, and this is probably going to be, I mean, you just can't fight this. PuppyPaw retreating back into his base, but...
It's so demoralizing. You're sitting here like, okay, maybe I can take that fight, and then more spim and sharp, and then more spim, and then more archers sharp as well. So gold has to be abandoned. We have to remember, this was a sticking point. PuppyPaw, we're at that point in regions. There's simply no gold. There's simply no knights. There's simply no hope. The champ is going to open this series with a win in game 1. Deep in reflection as well. I mean, is he happy about that? He kind of looks maybe a bit in analysis mode after that victory.
Well, I think he's definitely happy about that, but I mean, this matchup in particular, I think is definitely Delhi favored. PuppyPaw, I mean, I know that he was prepping other maps, other civs. This is kind of not a throwaway. Obviously, this is a map that you want to be winning, but it favors MarineLorD.
We talked about this at the start. The regions is this tricky map, is that you don't usually want to see at the start of a draft round because there are some picks that can be very strong, but you need to strip a few back. It's not like a Dry Arabia. I feel like Dry Arabia, you could kind of plant anything on there and feel kind of good. Regions has certain conditionals that make you feel uncomfortable, and another map that can make you feel uncomfortable. This is going to be either this or Socotra, the map of the series, because Holy Island, we know MarineLorD is an incredibly talented person on water, but if there's something I've noticed about both you and PuppyPaw, you have leveled up your water game tremendously in the last year.
Well, I mean, I'm excited for this game in particular. We have prepared things for Holy Island. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but very aggressive gameplay here I expect to see. However, I have no idea what to expect from MarineLorD here, and I assume it's going to be Zushi, but Zushi, another very, very strong bottom civ, right? So MarineLorD going to feel strong on Zushi here.
And of course, we know that there's Japanese on the other side. This has been, I think, the most played matchup is Zushi versus Japanese on Holy Island. Japan got buffed, right? Ever since like the last major tournament, they've got that reduction to Shinobi cost, now 50-50, a little bit more spammable. I think there was also a really cool game from Beastie in the qualifiers where he pivoted with more Shinobi and delay sabotaged on the docks. It threw his opponent off, and it meant that the second wave of ships that's meant to secure you water for Juji didn't ever come out.
Well, I mean, you may not see Japan on this map, I'll just say that. But
really?
It's definitely possible that you don't.
You think, like, what, would you go Chinese here, you reckon?
Not China.
He's got Frisian. There's no way.
He's going to play, I mean, I think he's going to play Albids on this map, right? If you followed King of the Rockies, another very spectacular land event, Albids very strong on water, in particular going up fast with them.
Yeah. They
have a lot of options in their arsenal. The economic wing gives 350 wood now, it's been buffed. They have reduced cost for the Dark Age to Feudal Age tech. So you really don't know what to expect if you are up against Albids here, and that's favoring Albids, obviously, so
that's a fair point.
MarineLorD, who knows, right?
That is a fair point. I think, like, where else could you potentially see Albids? Gorge is the other natural one I was thinking. It just fits. It's just very comfortable. I think also, you know, we've seen on Gorge in particular, there's some potential for the logistics wing play where you get the religious units early, so you can prep for a fast castle relic snatch. I know in particular, like a few players like Anatan were practicing that quite a bit about a month ago with mixed success.
Well, I mean, you would definitely see Albids on Socotra. A lot of my practice with PuppyPaw has been Albids on Socotra. However, I think PuppyPaw feels a little bit up against the wall. Best of 5 obviously every map. If he doesn't win this map,
Match point.
I mean match point, so
It's
he wants
big.
his best strategies first, and Ori Island might see Albids here.
All right, even I can do this. I can count to 2. 1's in the chat if you are cheering for MarineLorD. 2's if we've got a lot of Canadian fans here for PuppyPaw. Not just for the banner, but for the play style. Old versus new is what I'm feeling here. And, yeah, I mean, I think Juji's a bit dirty, and so is HRE. So maybe I'll lean PuppyPaw. You know, I think you're probably having this as well. When you play HRE afterwards, you feel like you need a shower. It almost feels a bit too easy.
It's a bit strong, especially with this patch, but I mean, both of these players, very good. I mean, the thing about HRE, right, I think at a weaker level, it's more difficult to deal with because they just have an immense amount of units, whereas at a top level, there's strategies you can do. You can cut off reinforcements, you can raid their base. A little bit more difficult to deal with that mass amount of units when you're, well, not used to it, right?
No, let's try and back engineer this draft, because I think there's some things that almost feel inevitable. One that comes to mind is Socotra. Marlians feels quite good in a lot of people's eyes. Like, if we're looking, I think Socotra is such a specific map. If you're looking for a way of reverse engineering where pick's going to come out, it's a good place to start. I've seen a few Japanese players there. It's kind of intriguing. You mentioned the Ibids. I felt like they came in with the Marlians and then fell off, but I really rate the Gulam spam potential highly on that map.
Well, yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think PuppyPaw actually has a lot of good choices for Socotra. Malians, for example, Albids. I mean, even Japan has potential on Socotra, whereas MarineLorD, I mean, I'm leaning towards HRE there just because Rus, Mongo's a little bit weaker. However, I mean, maybe you could go Rus on Socotra and get the ball early. I don't know.
I know some people like Mongols, but like with Marlians there, it's a no-no, right? Which is weird because I feel like on a normal map, Mongols feel decent against Marlians. The Rus, we've seen a lot of Kremlin drops, but I feel like sometimes that Kremlin drop just loses a player a game. It doesn't win them the game, right? Because if it feels like the type of landmark drop where you lose if you focus so much on the fact they've done it.
Well, scaling your economy is one of the most important parts of every 4. Rus, the best way to do that as Rus is to go second TC, whereas on Socotra you just don't have the space for that, you don't have the food for that, and if you're up against a civ like Malians, an easy way for them to scale their economy, going cows, you don't need that second TC, you can play very condensed. Rus is just not going to be able to keep up there, which makes me think HRE, right? So.
And it's like, you know, the thing is, like, I like MarineLorD's draft for the Frisian pick later. Mongols locks a lot of things, but that also means that China pick, I agree, it can't come out in Holy Island because I feel like you need to hold that hostage over the Mongols for Frisian. So like Holy Island, you know, we used to see HRE a lot. Is there a world, or is that a bit too crazy, at which you pick HRE here?
I mean, it's a possibility, right? MarineLorD has surprised us again and again, particularly in this draft, at least me, and who knows, maybe he goes HRE on Holy Island, goes Zushi on Socotra. Definitely a possibility here.
What about Abbasids? Because if you think your opponent's going to go Iabids, you pick Abbasids into them, right?
On Holy Island?
Yeah. Because on land, I know that's Abbasid favored, but on water?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think MarineLorD is thinking that, but we'll have to see here, right?
I mean, we used to see Rus a lot, but I think we're getting confirmation in that. So it's going to be Iabids versus Juji. So we've got that old versus new. You mentioned King of the Rockies, the most recent tournament with a noteworthy prize pool, where you just had that Iabid meta coming in, whereas Juji, something a lot more historical here. Talk to me through this quickly, like as we prep to get into game here. Is this an Iabid favored matchup?
I think it really depends on what MarineLorD does here. It's going to be difficult for MarineLorD to deal with that aggression if he doesn't understand it's coming, right? So he's going to need to scout and
let's find out.
Properly defend what's coming his way.
All right, here we go, folks. Game number 2, the grand finals for Age of Empires 4, Red Bull Wololo El Reinado. Iabid, something a little bit different for anyone who's taken a break from watching Holy Island, something more new. Whereas MarineLorD has gone for the tried and true Juji legacy, the bullies of 2024 on this map.
Yeah, MarineLorD going for that early dock here. PuppyPaw is, I mean, if you're familiar with this map, you go water, PuppyPaw is not doing that. So gonna see something special here today from PuppyPaw.
You tend to prep for the advancement wing, right, and then you come out for the dock on a delay, is what we've seen usually on water map side bids. So, with that in mind, is there a world in which you drop the dock towards your opponent's side, or is it just safe play for the food?
I think there's a high chance that we see the aggressive dock here, just because, I mean, if you're docking on your side, it's gonna take 10, 20 seconds to reach the opponent's side, and that, on a water map in particular, very critical time, right?
It's tricky as well because, like, I think this matchup in particular, usually you think, it's not too bad on a water map. Advancement wing gets you there. Is it 40% faster now? It was 35 before, I think. It's quite fast. It's about a minute and 13 seconds. So that in mind, you get there quickly. But that's something that Zhuji is also phenomenal at. They get the discount from Tang Dynasty of 15% on their tech up, and they build landmarks quicker.
Well, yes, I mean, Zushi, but you have to understand, Zushi is playing. I mean, they have to spend full cost for their fishing boats, right? Comparatively to Japan, who spends half. And they also start with an IO, which means you have 4 villagers on the wood line here. That's not even efficient at this stage of the game, right?
Wait a second, is he going growth wing?
Yeah, he's going growth wing. I mean...
Okay. I mean, it's so good, right? Like, you have to keep in mind, at the point in the game where you get growth wing, it's like a 15% increase to your villager count.
Sorry, he's not going growth.
Oh, is he not?
He's going industry. He should be going industry here.
Let's check. Check the House Wisdom. We've got industry wing play. Okay, so this is for the rush of docks into the boats, right?
Yeah, it's just to get, I mean, water control, right?
There we go,
That's critical in this map. And the idea behind this is similar to Zushi on Meditation Gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go for that fast age up, and you're trying to immediately get water control, just because your opponent has been investing into the fishing boats. Meanwhile, you invest first into military units, and with that industry wing, 350 wood, that's quite a significant amount of wood, right?
And now we get the double dock reaction like coming in, so PuppyPaw is ready to surge forward with this now. MarineLorD, the funny thing is, normally when we get on this map, we're like, where's the good meditation garden placement? But this is intriguing. The IBID changed the flip on the script here. It feels almost like an irrelevant detail, which is wild considering meditation garden usually gives you about 120 resources plus on this particular map.
Exactly. I mean, I'll share a little bit of insight. Zushi was another pick that PuppyPaw and I were leaning heavily towards picking on this map. However, again, MarineLorD picked that Zushi, so that's something we couldn't do. Backup plan, Albids, and I mean, MarineLorD isn't going to be able to get that great meditation gardens.
He's going to have to rush. Oh, wait, he's trying. He's going to go for it anyway, the greedy boy. So remember, folks, it's going to gather resources based on everything nearby. It's going to lock in a number. So it looks like he's got all of the berries, so that should be 72 food. And then it's going to be 25 stone. That stone is especially important for the arrow slitting placements on the docks.
Yeah, well, I don't think MarineLorD's going to be able to get 2 docks here, though, just because the speed of this time. I mean, okay, well, I guess he is, but he's not going to be able to afford a lot of units then, immediately when he goes fuel ratio.
But I guess the tricky thing there, the logic is, well, he can't afford units. Now because you've gone double for dock, you're not fishing. So does PuppyPaw want to try to get some fishing boats out on the ford here?
I think you may see 1 or 2 fishing boats just from PuppyPaw, probably prior to getting fuel, right? And if we don't see those now, we probably won't see them. I mean, he had 1 Hulk, 1 airship in production. He now has a demo ship, so he's going to be looking to apply heavy pressure to these docks here.
So going to force the garrison. MarineLorD going to have to wait for reinforcements. Is going to have to shift those villagers back and away. I mean, the incredible thing PuppyPaw could have maybe tried to do is sneak a dock between the two and then try to rush them stone yourself, get some arrow slits or demo ships. But he's just going to try to lean aggressively from one side here. And we have got the retracted dock now. So PuppyPaw, he's setting up for his food economy far on the opposite side of the map from here.
Yeah, exactly. And we see the first war junk come out. Hopefully that demo can... Oh.
Well, he doesn't hold it. So the repair from the fishing boats will be good enough to push away the archer ship. And it looks like PuppyPaw is actually prioritized targeted under the springboard. Not the best of ideas here. The demo now coming out. Should be able to get him low. And with Micro, it looks like that's going to be the Bagler going to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, and that was obviously a very good trade from MarineLorD there. He got the archer ship just in time. And, I mean, it wasn't a bad demolition ship by PuppyPaw, but if he had kept that archer ship alive, then it would be a very good situation for PuppyPaw here. However, that's how Wololo goes, you know.
Return fire coming in here. Detonation just in time before it shifts away. So we'll at least reset the playing field. But now when you think about, like, we're neck and neck on economy, the fishing can at least start to blow up for MarineLorD here. MarineLorD does have the IO to inflate him a bit, but we should be getting close to that Golden Age 1, which isn't as substantial for the IBIDs, but it's still a 10% increase on your economy.
Yeah, Golden Age 1 will help MpuppyPaw here. However, obviously MarineLorD does have that meditation guns, which on this map is very good. He's probably getting, like you said, 72 food or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's almost 2 fishing boats, which is very, very significant as well.
And then, of course, the 25 stones. So over time, he can rely on those static defenses with the arrow slits to give him a reset point here. One of the villagers going down on the fort, though, so great shift in there. Every villager really counts with this type of play. Yes, MarineLorD's lost some fishing boats, but those are more easily replaceable than these valuable villagers.
You can see that they're neck and neck on the units, and in production they both have 1 Hulk, they both have an airship.
Wait.
Very tight game here.
MpuppyPaw, I don't think... Okay. I thought he wasn't going to see it for a second, because the disaster is you then walking all the way back to the gold, because you're going to need another demo in about probably the next 30-40 seconds here.
Yeah, and he's getting, well, another Hulk here, but obviously you do want that demo as well. I mean, if you look at the income here, MpuppyPaw is slightly behind just because of that meditation guns, but hopefully in the next 2 to 3 minutes, like you said, you can get that Golden Age up as well.
It's like, please just repair it beyond the fire.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, he should repair it to full, or attack the scout with his own scout. I mean, he still has that roaming around the map, right? So
it's crazy because if you think about it, he's spending to repair this. He's idling out. It's 4 villagers, 3 villagers, right? On the other side, he's only denying 10% of 100, like, was it 97 resources. So he's denying 9.7 resources a minute, but he easily lost more in that repair access. So kind of an awkward trade. He's now coming back like to deal with it with the scout. But now MarineLorD's starting to bolster up the fleet. We've got 3 Springhorns, we've got him prepping the demo ship as well. And MpuppyPaw does, of course, have those 2 docks, but when they're this tight and close together, that can leave you a bit more vulnerable. If you lose this control point, you don't have that split reset where, like MarineLorD, if he gets pushed back, he has a safe replenishment point further behind him.
yeah.
Demo in. Ooh, just about gets it. Archer ship on the other side. MarineLorD, I don't know how he didn't take more damage from that. That looks so close. So does dodge any real pain here. We have got kind of a neck and neck, and the scout has discovered there is a back dock. So MarineLorD at this point needs to start feeling maybe a little bit more pressure to move to deny that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that stone, but it's not going to help out here. MpuppyPaw is deciding to go a little bit more defensive, go for the long-term gameplay here. MarineLorD actually going for the archer range, so he's going to be deciding, okay, let's be aggressive on lands instead if we can't get this water damage done here, right? And I think that's a good choice for MarineLorD.
I think it's another thing that makes Zhuji a lot nicer than China is, like, China, of course, would have to build 2 landmarks to get access to the Zhuganu. You get them straight away. In a game like this, where there's no real focus on your land, you have no ranged armor on those villagers, they are going to take a heavy dose of 12 damage per burst from the Zhug.
Yeah, and MpuppyPaw is going to need to scout for that. I mean, that's critical information. If you do get those Zuganus on the gold there, you're not going to be able to get demos. That Hulk mass is going to be very, very difficult to deal with. I mean, you won't even be able to get Hulks yourself, right? So
it was crafty as well. Like, the way he done that, he waited for the scout to come home before he really reacted to that move. So you're right. If we check vision, I don't think MpuppyPaw necessarily sees it coming before it arrives on the gold line. In the meantime, there's that distraction. And this is a classic for Holy Island. Attack on water, but also simultaneously attack on land. The first Zhuganu are already approaching the gold.
Yeah, and MpuppyPaw is going to have to deal with both things at once. And that's why this map in particular is very, very... I mean,
it's high skill, it's high tension, it's high APM, it's a sweaty boy map, and the Zhug beautifully micro there. MarineLorD getting another villager kill. Yes, it's 2 worker kills a pop, but of course for MpuppyPaw that matters a lot as the villagers are more critical here. They can't easily be replaced like the fishing boats.
Yeah. Okay, we do see a stable from MpuppyPaw, and that will be able to deal with the Zhuganu coming out. May lose another villager here, which is not ideal, but he does have that villager advantage because of the fishing boats, right?
Shove coming in. Now, MpuppyPaw needs to be a little bit careful here, because as MarineLorD, because the demo ships now can come from behind. So MpuppyPaw is going to give a bit of slack, a bit of way, but we have to remember he got idled out of the gold. He doesn't actually have the gold count to release the demo ships yet. So MarineLorD going to be able to brute force this even deeper. If this starts to reach the fishing eco, things are going to get uncomfortable for the Canadian.
Yeah, and when pushing like this as MarineLorD, you have to watch out for the demo ships. However, like you mentioned, that's not something that he has to be concerned with the gold idled here. And I mean, didn't get the damage done here, but potentially he could next.
All that effort microing that 1 HP demo ship, you're like, wow, the mic, and it just stays there. So does end up losing the boat still. MarineLorD is doing a good job of keeping the Springles alive so far. PuppyPaw finally does have one of those demos queued up. I think at this point, PuppyPaw needs to hunt down the Juggernaut, which he's done, but now find counter damage with these horsemen. They're not cheap.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
As well. Okay, thank God. That felt like a misclick. That would have been a heavy investment into camels.
Well, MarineLorD has already invested into Spearman here, so he won't be suffering too much damage from the horsemen. Obviously, he's very on top of what PuppyPaw is doing, right?
It feels like MarineLorD is just getting better water trades, though, right? Like, the demos is mainly the thing flopping for him. Great, it means you're not getting the big hit, but the Springle count difference is building. It's double the count now for MarineLorD, and PuppyPaw needs a double demo pump to reset this. MarineLorD should be on point to shift away, but he's getting a bit greedy with placement here. Pinch comes in from behind, and the reaction a little bit slow. MarineLorD does get hit on the backside, but the Archer ship minimizes the damage.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned earlier, right? You really have to be mindful of those docks on the top side. MarineLorD minimize the damage as much as possible, and is actually getting very good trades
This is
here.
dirty.
So.
With a health bar like that per ship, I love the fact that he understands that health shouldn't be a limitation. Damage matters more. He's like that classic person that wants all the damage items in an RPG. They don't want armor. So uses that to his edge. Resets PuppyPaw now down to 2 Springles here. And as you said, those horsemen aren't going to find value on land. The best thing I think PuppyPaw can hope for is to just mitigate some of the meditation garden gathering by idling that out with the disturbance of peace.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very minimal damage. I would...
You just shouldn't be here, buddy, but bye.
I mean, not too big of a loss there. I think the water is what PuppyPaw really needs to be kind of getting back control of. I mean, he's down 4 Hulks. In general, Hulks on water are the most dominant unit, and you support those with Archer ships not to get demoed, right? And he's down almost, well, 3 now once he gets this additional Hulk.
But we can see what's happening here. It's like both of them are pseudo-prepping for castle transition, and you know, it's not bad for iBase with Advancement Wing in their pocket, but it's very dangerous with Zhuji, right? That cheaper tech up is kind of insane. It's what their signature move was on maps like Warring Island and Archipelago, pure water maps. Is the tricky thing with them wasn't just how they could win the opening fight, it's how quickly they could then transition into Age 3.
Yeah, and I think PuppyPaw is kind of working towards that as well, though. I mean, he's actually almost got enough to age up here, and Wing with Advancement Wing, he could actually have a very deadly attack, even if he does lose this water. I mean, once you get control of the land, I mean, you can have massive swings in your advantage there.
I like that we got Teak Mask coming through as well, so PuppyPaw just getting that, I believe it's 15% increased HP on his military boats, make him a little bit more bulky, maybe they survive an extra demo. In the meantime, though, the docks are starting to flop dead. 1 down, 1.5 HP, and the demo are meant to counter the Springles, but within reason, not when there's that many staring you down. So he will lose the 4th position, and this is all a forfeiture for the tech. You just saw him lose the resources. Advancement Wing has been locked in by PuppyPaw.
Yeah, and I think that's a great option for PuppyPaw here. It's definitely a little bit easier to defend on water. I mean, it's going to be difficult against this mass from MarineLorD, but if PuppyPaw can do that for a considerable time, force MarineLorD to continue to build ships, it's going to be a potential win condition for PuppyPaw on land.
It's tricky because he is prepping a lot of spears, which counters the value of Camel Lancers on the opening. And on top of that, the pressure is mounting here, right? 7 Springles. PuppyPaw is at least building a second wave behind this. Love the fact he's prepped 3 additional Springles. The key thing here is going to be to hold to get that initial tech. Is there something you think we're looking at here? Maybe explosive techs or the armored hull first?
Well, I mean, it depends on this fight, right?
Oh, he's pushing in. Archer ship just trying to shove away any demos, but you know, it looks like MarineLorD is missing that wave. I feel like we're at that point, and agreed, here we go. We typically see this on Hurley Island where someone starts to snowball demos. You see 5 come out, you see 10 come out. We've had games where there's been 20 plus demo ships, and in the meantime, PuppyPaw might be teching up, but he doesn't have access to the gold. The Spearman spam from MarineLorD is shoving him off of it.
Yeah, and he's going, I mean, if you look at the gold mines, 3 gold mines right beside each other up here. That's super bad for PuppyPaw.
Imagine if Yuji spawned this side with a meditation garden.
I mean, amazing, right? But
that's why you pick it here when you get those type of spawns. So, yeah, we usually joke the MarineLorD spawn. He didn't quite get it in this game, but it's also a curse for PuppyPaw because he now has to find a reaction on land, and that's going to be what, like, archers? Or you're going to have to bind the gold and maybe go for some Ghulams?
I think it's going to have to be Ghulams here. I don't think he's going to do too much damage, potentially regain gold control with the Ghulams here. Not as much as he probably would have liked, but again, he didn't lose water control, so he's very much in this game still.
I mean, Golems are at least more cost efficient than Camel Lancers, food versus gold, right? And you have a lot of food, but we are seeing MarineLorD now prepping his own tech up, and this is the tricky thing with Juji. Even if they're later, they're not that slow to get up. 15 workers on it, and look at that bar filling up. Shaolin Monastery now on the way, so Relic's going to become a key objective for both, but right now, puppypaw is having to wall himself in the back of his own base here. Quick reactions to block a potential damaging and dangerous raid. Push now coming in on water. The demos are going to move in. The archer ships need to react fast to this. The counter play is going to be to pull forward with the fishing boats and the demos laid in. But it looks like the demos have hit to the backside. Teakmask is going to minimize the losses for puppypaw. Spring was still alive, but MarineLorD now with a lead up to 12. Armored Hulls is already on the way, and puppypaw's eco is starting to get blocked out on both land and water.
Yeah, he lost a lot of fishing boats on water here. I mean, he's actually down on ships as well, down on technology. It's going to be difficult to hold this push on water, and again, he's going to have to do something on land.
He's not looking good there. The Golems, like, they're good. They're going to win this fight eventually, but it's taking so much time to reclaim his own base, and it's coming at a cost. It's affecting his ability to get additional boats out here. The demo ship rally point, not ideal as he's distracted, so MarineLorD just getting freebies there. He doesn't have his own demo pump to reset this, but MarineLorD is also prepping a transition on land. Crossbows now on the way as he continues to dominate the water side.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Crossbows are very effective at dealing with Gulams, man-at-arms in general. Even the puppypaw, you know, does, and he probably will regain control of the gourd, he's not going to have an effective counter for those crossbowmen.
This may be the edge of the abyss for puppypaw. We talked about him wanting to avoid this 2-0 situation, back up against the wall, no room for error, but it feels like that is approaching here. 72 to 56 economy. Puppypaw, that is dangerous as well. Gold, there was an extra on the shoreline, but if he loses this position, he will be gold starved, he will be food starved, he will be starved out of this game.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, MarineLorD looks like retreating a bit here, but if you look at the villager tab, I mean, he's down 20 there, down military as well. I mean, puppypaw is definitely not happy with the situation, but I mean, there is potential for him to come back here if he can get good trades on, I mean, on both water and land.
He does at least have that woodline now truly safe with the palisades up, but the crossbows have been revealed, and this is unfortunate for puppypaw. He hasn't got 3 or 4 camel lancers out that are now forcing defensive reactions. You may notice MarineLorD is lacking walls for good reason. There's no reason to do it. It's a wasted effort. He wants to put everything into the attack, and it's just it's a double snowball effect, right? You're not just denying your opponent's equity, you're not forced to protect your own.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this kind of came down to puppypaw not having great trades at the start of the fight here, and I mean, when you're playing a map like this, tempo is so important. Water, tempo kind of go hand in hand together. And puppypaw, I mean, that early Hulk got destroyed, the early Archer ship got destroyed.
That opening Zuganu.
Kind of, yeah, the early Zuganu, it kind of took the wind out of his sail.
And now we're seeing him idled out. The gold workers have to lead. Now, the Spring ships will at least be able to reset this, but it's a sticking point. The gold is now going to be an undeniable issue. Meanwhile, the only upside is MarineLorD has taken this long to produce a single Shaolin Monk, but he's finally targeting relics to accelerate that eco lead that already has him ahead by over 20.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see neither side has actually started to gather the relics here because this game has been so, I mean,
you can't be greedy, right? It's all in. It's what you want, though. You know, it's the purebred form, but there it is, the purest of them all. MarineLorD, it's 2 in a row. He's looking to make this a quick closer for the night. Already on match point here in the grand finals. And we've got to look a bit deeper now because you've worked with puppypaw on this. You've ran him through this. You've drilled this into him. You've worked out the formula in your eyes. What is the way back from this? Because he needs to read MarineLorD's draft almost perfectly and execute. It feels like almost perfectly now.
Yeah, he does. I mean, the way back into this is by just playing the best Age of Empires 4 that you can, and puppypaw definitely has it in him to do it. I mean, down 2-0 obviously is not a good place to be in, but puppypaw, I mean, he's been down 2-0 many times before, and I mean, he's an amazing AoE 4 player, so I think he can do it.
I mean, that's the beauty, right? It's never over until it's over. 99% back up against the wall. We've seen it time and time again in Age of Empires 2, 4, Myth, all of them, comeback stories that are undeniable. The Cinderella turnaround, and that could be it. But, you know, this is the key paramount moment is I keep looking at it, and I keep seeing that HRE, and it's like a horror movie on my screen. What is the solution now? Because we talked about Ibis as a potential way of dealing with that. When you look at the rest of his draft, what does he have?
I mean, China on Frisian is one of the strongest, if not the strongest pick on Frisian. I think either we see that or we see Sakatra next. Going into the final series, if we do get a 2-2, I think PuppyPaw might struggle a bit more there because he's left with Japan and John Dog, but he's, in my opinion, very high chance to actually make 2-2 in this series.
It's crazy to think how quickly that snowballed, and I mean, that's the volatility of Holy Island that we see there in the grass, right? Like, MarineLorD, I mean, he always talks about this idea of taking a 1 or 2% advantage and snowballing it, and I think that's where Holy Island is like a purebred map for him. I think that is one of the most obvious maps where the tiniest advantage completely unravels it.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, MarineLorD is very good at just not being too greedy, playing the map very, very well. I mean, he doesn't need to take these desperation plays when he's playing the game not to perfection, but very, very well, right? He just doesn't need to. So MarineLorD's excellent at that.
Cheer up, lad. You may be at the beginning of one of the greatest comebacks in Age of Empires 4. Positive outlook, man. I think it's always important, and you know that may be a difference as something that you can speak to it because you and Puppy rather been like on a similar level of trajectory. You've started to get more of competitive experience. I think one of the biggest differences is that mental reset, right? Is understanding that it's never over until it's over, and to not let yourself get in your own head too much.
I mean, you have to. This is the grand finals. PuppyPaw is not, you know, just some run-of-the-mill player. He is the second best player in Age of Empires, maybe the best if he can win this. So, again, no means over. So.
Hey, look at that. Staying late into the night. Love the support. Love the turnout as well. I mean, this is something else. It's crazy to think. I said it at the start of the series. It's a wild moment because for PuppyPaw, I mean, this was set like a new high, undeniably for him in his career. For MarineLorD, I checked the stats, I looked at the breakdown. We've had multi-time Red Bull Wololo champions, but never back-to-back. MarineLorD has the potential to be the first person ever to do that in the Age of Empires Wololo history.
Yeah, and that would just show MarineLorD's domination in Age of Empires 4 in general. I mean, this would be the third S-tier tournament that he's won this year. I mean, every S-tier tournament, right? So MarineLorD is just very, very dominant at the moment.
I think he'd say that he's earning his salary package from General Mates at this point. You know, plenty of trophies to go into the cabinet for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, MarineLorD, you can't. If he wins this tournament, you can't knock him down too much. You know, he's earned his praise.
PuppyPaw on the other side. I mean, it's a phenomenal turn of events that got him here, the way that the entire qualifier phase played out. I mean, it's shown the potential, right? And we talked about the stats this year so far, 50-50, right? Start of the year, MarineLorD's dominance. More recently, in slightly lower tier tournaments, A tier, B tier, it has been MarineLorD falling. King of Dry Arabia, I believe, is the most recent one where it was a 3-2 set, if I recall correctly, going to PuppyPaw. So there is that potential. He knows the ins and outs. There is no Dry Arabia here, but, you know, looking to the next map, you know, do you go to the Frisian? Knowing that HRE could come out there, do you feel confident with it?
I mean, as we see, yes, he's going to the Frisian.
Okay, so we have confirmed it. Frisian Marshes, this is signature PuppyPaw. If there was any map you looked at in this pool, and I think you'll agree with me, that he could take, this is the most obvious one. We're getting ready for it now. Game 3 is going to be Frisian Marshes, and PuppyPaw has something special cooked up for you folks. He may easily be the best Chinese player in the game. It's his signature Civ, and he pulls them out. MarineLorD on the other side is going to be heading into the deep swamps with the Abbasids in his hands.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what MarineLorD will do with the Abbasids here. Obviously, you have Trade Wing, you have Eco Wing, you can even go Military Wing. There's a lot of options for Abbasids here, whereas China, it's a little bit more predictable. You're probably going to see some Zhuge aggression. MarineLorD really has the option to choose what tempo he wants to set in this game.
And here we go. It's been a day with some heroic comebacks. Could we see another one here? Game number 3, MarineLorD on match point, looking to make it back-to-back Wololo champion titles. PuppyPaw with his best Civ on one of the best maps for it. Let's see what he's got for us. So run us through the openings here, because Abbasids is kind of an interesting one. I think recently when we see Chinese, we've seen Mongols, we've seen Japanese, HRE. Abbasids has always been lingering, but I feel like it's taken a bit of a back foot on this particular map.
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, there's lots of options for Abassids here. I think something, as shown here, Sheep is going to be critical. I think MarineLorD has a bit of an edge on Sheep, but PuppyPaw has definitely got his fair share, and I mean, he won't be too unhappy with the Sheep correction here.
Usually China wins the initial divide, right? Because with the Tang Dynasty, they have the better vision, so they should be able to react to you. Like we've seen at the highest level, the best, which PuppyPaw was one of, sees their scout first, and then they pivot past so they don't know that they've been seen.
That's true. Tang definitely, I mean, greater vision on the scout, right? You can see more, and he is going to correct some more Sheep up here, so like I mentioned, both players should be decently happy with the Sheep correction in this game.
Now, I'm looking at MarineLorD's spawn, and I am seeing Ford Gold and Ford Stone, and I know that PuppyPaw's a very big fan of adding another landmark to the enemy base.
Yeah, Barbican Rush is definitely a strategy PuppyPaw could pull out here. You have to remember on this map in particular, your wood is always going to be backwards, so there's a high chance that the stone, the gold, is going to be forwards, and PuppyPaw knows that. He's no slouch.
Oh, yeah.
He knows that MarineLorD will very likely will have front resources here.
And we are going to get an Imperial Academy opening. I mean, we talked about this behind the scenes. I think this is a top 3 feudal landmark. It's insane how good this landmark is now.
I mean, we touched on this exact situation. A lot of Sheep, you know, massive backwood lines. You're just going to get a lot of value from that Imperial Academy.
Yep, and generate 20% more. I mean, I always say that the Chinese cook the books. They take a limited resource and add 20% on for reasons.
Yeah, I mean, me and PuppyPaw have actually touched on this many, many times, is that China is one of the civs that benefits from Sheep the most because of the 20% supervised bonus. H3, yes, but you're going to exhaust that Sheep so much faster, whereas China just gets additional food on top of the Sheep, right?
And this is tricky now because MarineLorD has gone for the economy wing. We've seen this actually eclipsing the military wing recently. Very powerful tool to utilize. With a Fertile Crescent, you get cheaper town centers. I believe it's a 35% discount. It might went up to 40%. So, you know, by the time you're up to 3 TCs, you're probably getting the fort basically for free. Then we have fresh foodstuffs, which is going to reduce villager cost from 50 to 32. You know, we used to see China versus Abassids being a bit of a TC race, but with all these changes, I feel like China can't do that TC race anymore.
Yeah, and they don't need to on this map, I think. We're going to see probably Song from PuppyPaw, which means 50% increased villagers, right? So MarineLorD going to go for that second TC, probably won't be able to go for a third TC. I would be very, very surprised if he did go for that third TC, which means he's only going to get the benefit from the Eco Wing on one TC and not the third one.
The other tricky thing here is all that backward you mentioned. I mean, the nice thing about Frisian is usually we talk about the cheap farms. The thing that's going to be nice for China here is if this was like Dry Arabia, the thing you'd like for Abassids here is like building farms doesn't feel as painful because you get them for 49 wood instead of 75, right? Or 52 wood instead of 75. So that difference makes farm transitions feel more comfortable. Whereas here, you don't really want to think about farm transitions. You shouldn't have to when you on average have 20 plus sheep underneath your TC.
Yeah, exactly. MarineLorD, I mean, I'm curious as to where he's going to put the TC here, right? Because there's the gold option, there's the fish option, there's the wood option.
I mean, it's berry and fish, which just feels too good to pass up.
Well, if you do that, you're kind of inviting aggression into your game, right? Very vulnerable TC if you place that there, and I think he's looking to place it on the gold.
Plays it safe.
Yep.
I mean, the thing is, when I get gold and stone this close, I watch an Abassid player, and it's almost like the temptation of the dark side. You're like, just go fast castle now, don't be weird. And then you look across at the stone. You're like, 3 TC does sound kind of cool. It's always been in the blood of Abassid players.
That is true. I mean, 5 TCs, 6 TCs. Who knows how many you can go with Abassids, but MarineLorD probably just going to go with 2 here. He likely knows what PuppyPaw is going to be doing, and he's trying to secure that gold, right? I mean, he's going to need the blacksmith upgrades, especially against Zuganu, which have those 3 attacks instead of the traditional 1, which means that the defensive undermesh is going to be so much more critical to get.
And that's tricky as well, because if you play a greedy tech game, you try to come in later as Abassids. You know, unlike Ibids have that cool thing with Golden Age 2, where they get 50% quicker tech speed, but with
I'm sorry.
Oh, just go ahead.
He's actually going for a 3rd TC here, which for me is just like very, very nuts. I mean, I know what PuppyPaw is going to do. He's going to Zuganu all in him.
He has to.
And if you're going for that 3rd TC,
And the other thing here is it delays that blacksmith timing. What I was getting into is like with Irobids, you have that 50% increased research speed from Golden Age 2. You get 15% as a bass. It's just nothing. Meanwhile, China, they don't just cook the books. They also somehow incentivize people to just research things super fast. So you get, was it undermesh in about 30 seconds? It's insane.
I mean, look at the villager count here. PuppyPaw is actually up 2 villagers now, 3 villagers. And MarineLorD is the one going 3rd TC, so...
It's the Imp Academy, right? It's always tricky because I think he's up to, is he up to 4 taxmen already? Oh yeah, he's got the full 4, so...
But either way, right?
It's going to balance it out a bit, yeah.
Right, so...
I think the thing that makes this so desirable for a bass is just how cheap it is though. 32 food for a villager just feels like a drop in a pond. You don't care. But we'll have to see if PuppyPaw can make him. The Zhuge are starting to march across the field. MarineLorD already aware that it's coming. He scouted it immediately and we should be seeing a stables reaction soon.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you do go for that stables, then you're going to exhaust your food so much quicker. And yes, you have a lot of sheep on this map, but I mean, you're up against aggression. The game will be going long. You're going to either have to build farms or go for that berries and fish spawn, which you mentioned earlier, right?
Oh yes, and now with the stables coming down, I mean, sheep count, if we can double check that with the control shift there, I think we're probably at like 20 still. He has got some berries left over. It's not the 50. That's respectable. That's, what, 3,000 food? Yeah, 3,000.
Well, that does go quick, you know, and PuppyPaw is actually going to tower rush the gold here, which means if MarineLorD has not gotten these blacksmith upgrades soon, doesn't have the gold, I mean, won't be able to get eco upgrades as well. I mean, that's not great for him, but he is going to get enough at least for undermesh here, right?
Yeah, but Steel Dara can still come in quicker. PuppyPaw just scouted it, so I imagine we're going to get blacksmiths at home. 14 Zhuge is begging for it here. The question is where the penetration point is going to be. Funnily enough, he doesn't go blacksmiths. Instead, now adding in the racks, it is going to give MarineLorD a lot more punch between these horsemen before those spears arrive.
Yeah, and one thing about the aggression here is that if you can get those early rams out, especially since MarineLorD went 3 TC, he's not going to have the army to actually kill the rams, which, in my opinion, PuppyPaw should be going blacksmith a little bit sooner, right?
Yeah, it feels like usually by the time you got 10 Juke, you're like, okay, blacksmith now. Steel Dara, it's insane because you have to remember, Steel Dara on a normal archer, that's +1. Steel Dara on a Zhuge that's +3.
Yeah, well, I think he needs to be going for the rams quite quick here as well, just because, again, as I mentioned, MarineLorD is on 3 TC. This isn't the traditional 2 TC gameplay that you expect to see when facing aggression.
Agreed, because although he's going to run out of food quick, he's reaching that point where his economy should be good enough to get a breakout opportunity. And if just one slip-up happens, if PuppyPaw's border breaks and some people sneak on out, that deer, that berry, the fish, they're all on the menu for MarineLorD.
Yeah, and maybe MarineLorD is actually going out to the fish now, and I think I caught that, but...
Yeah, he's shifting out.
Yeah, and that's something that you have to be doing. I mean, thinking about the later stages of this game, either you go for the fish or you go for farms, right? And when you're up against the wall, you don't want to be building farms.
No, I mean, you kind of can with a batters, but it's still going to put you behind. So, funnily enough, he builds the mill, immediately sees problems coming, does shift away. We've got an outpost now going over in that direction, so PuppyPaw just trying to get full vision control, make sure that MarineLorD doesn't have that sneak out. We've seen it so many times on this map where someone pulls 10 villagers and they go into the opposite corner, you never find them.
Yeah, I mean, that's... would be good for him. However, I don't think he's going to be able to, get that in this game, right? So, MarineLorD is going to get Wheelbarrow, he is going to get Undermesh and Steel Arrow. Might not get too much more than that.
We have got a ram coming, so MarineLorD is going to try to deal with that outpost pretty quickly here.
I think PuppyPaw either needs to get a ram himself or starve MarineLorD here. He's trying to starve MarineLorD, but that villager count is going to start to, allow MarineLorD to catch up in the army quite quick, right?
Oh look, more Zhuge. I feel like I've seen this a few too many times on the ladder.
Yes, and PuppyPaw has finally started to research siege engineering, so we're going to see some rams. He actually has 700 wood in the bank.
Mm-hmm. And remember, those secondary TCs don't have much health, so free rams can delete them quite quick. MarineLorD does, of course, have the horsemen, but the pain of Zhuge so much is when you dive in and start stabbing at those rams, you just die to the repeater crossbows.
Yeah, and if PuppyPaw can manage to take a fight here soon, if you just look at the unit numbers, MarineLorD cannot take a fight, so he's going to have to give up at least that third TC, or the second TC.
Meantime, I love the fact we're using horsemen like this. This is so big. Horsemen are an expensive investment. You need to be out on the map. The worst thing you can do is sit in your base. So he's going to try to cull some reinforcing waves here. There's a few spearmen in the mixer, but the horseman count is good enough. MarineLorD just trying to shift away, gets rid of most of the Zhuge-Nu, and gets away before losing a heavy chunk of those ponies.
Yeah, it's hard to see the spearmen in the stealth force, right? And
especially when they're in red on the orange.
Exactly. And maybe MarineLorD didn't even see that himself. He's like, oh, this is actually not a good fight for me. However, we're seeing the fight on the second TC now, and MarineLorD is going to try to defend this, but I'm really not sure he can, especially down 20 military population, right?
Well, the army's a bit split. We have to remember it's not all there for puppypaw. About 15 of his military is still shuffling across the map, so this might be the perfect time to go for that engagement. Horsemen on the backside are drawing fire. That's giving the breathing space for Horsemen to deal with the rams. Repair forces out to try and keep it alive, and the archers are trying to distract the Zhuge-Nu now. So 3 rams now going down to 2, soon to be 1. The second wave of horsemen come in before the spearmen arrive, and it looks like the rams are going to be shoved back. So MarineLorD, he keeps the TC alive, and now he's up by over 20 eco.
Yeah, but I think this is not a bad fight for puppypaw. If you look at the destroy value, very even, and puppypaw still has a very strong Zhuge-Nu mass here, right? 35 Zhuge-Nus to 12 archers and 6 horsemen. That's fine for puppypaw, at least at this stage in the game.
As soon as he gets him here, that's where it gets scary, right? I think credit to MarineLorD, when he kept cutting the reinforcements, slowing things down, it opened up that space. That's why horsemen can be such a powerful unit in feudal. The archer numbers are building over time, and one tricky thing that sometimes happens is when you dive these TCs, you kind of get the A-click point wrong, and all of a sudden you're attacking the TC instead of attacking those archers that have slightly more range than the repeater crossbows.
I mean, that is true, but if you look at the state of the game now, MarineLorD has 1,500 wood per minute, 284 food.
This has got to be a farm transition, right? So he needs to survive this.
He does, and he just doesn't have the horseman mass anymore to actually, raid, kill these Zhuge-Nu. Archers in general are not going to trade well against these Zhuge-Nu, so this is going to be a tough defense for MarineLorD here.
Once again, into the breach, hides behind the TC. Rams, love that. Get the money camp out of the way because we've seen how clowny their pathing can get sometimes. So pressure now on. Arrow fire from the town center is focused on the Zhug. Horsemen move in. They ignore the Zhuge-Nu and start to hit into the Rams. Villagers now pull for the torch through. And the archers are cutting the waves down here. And that military difference, it feels like it's getting closer here.
It is. MarineLorD, that eco is really starting to get a little bit out of control. However, again, the Zhuge-Nu is still doing very, very well. MarineLorD has only 14 archers now. puppypaw is still at that 35 Zhuge-Nu mass.
The thing is, like, puppypaw is 35, but it's never here, right? That's the problem, is he's got so many coming across. One ram still alive, though. The TC barely holding on, and the final shun should be coming through. He keeps it up for the moment. The villagers are drawing fire, and the Zhuge-Nu mass is getting pretty small here. And we have to remember behind this, even if this town center goes down, it's still 2 TC versus 1. So puppypaw needs to keep this pressure up. The beauty is, if he can strip this away, he knows MarineLorD can't do any cheeky sneak up because all gold will be denied.
It feels like this TC is
just won't
never gonna die.
He has to run away, and this is crazy because when we look at the aftermath of this fight, we're seeing one farm here. Check the back of MarineLorD's base. I think he's set up about 10, 15 farms in total. He has the food to now start affording mass archers, and quite soon, mass horsemen.
Yeah, I think once he can get over the amount of horsemen, that might be a bit of a struggle for puppypaw here. However, if you look at puppypaw's side, he still has very good income. 1,400 food, 1,000 wood.
But it's all going into feudal, right? And can you break the base anymore at this stage?
I think it's possible. China just scales so well into the late game. And, Zhuge-Nu are a very, very good feudal age unit, so...
He did get quite a few worker kills, right? You have to be conscious of that. It's still 20 eco lead, but when you think about that, I said it's 20 eco lead like a few minutes ago. So he has nullified some of the damage. And funnily enough, MarineLorD, he can't cut down the trees quick enough to set up farms in the back. So he's now setting up his eco in a dangerous location. And we have to remember, those farms are substantially worse than the fishing that puppypaw's on.
Exactly. And, MarineLorD does just not have the horsemen to spare to actually, go to the fishing to harass those villagers. So he needs everything at home to defend these bushes.
Love the sneak out into the bush and the fish, though. This is going to be big. The outpost did get removed very early by this one ram, this hero ram that's just been a mascot for the Abbasid Faith this entire time. Zhuge mass, I think, is as big as it's ever been. The spearman count is starting to bolster up a bit. Love the textiles, because I think one thing that's happening in these fights with Zhuge that's kind of annoying sometimes is you obviously want to kill villagers, but you're kind of overkilling them, but you're splitting your fires. So like the textiles may make them last a bit longer and allow those archers to get the trade necessary here to hold.
Yeah, definitely a good move by MarineLorD there. I mean, all he needs to do is hold here, right? And textiles is going to help him do that. Pushing out.
Crazy, right? Like it's 32 food for 75 health. It's not bad.
It's not bad by any means, no. You might get a few picks here with the horseman, however the stealth force again actually doesn't even see those units here.
I'd love to just see him go up to the fishing. He has to know that fishing's happening at this stage, right? Like you're not going to farm transition to China from this position. But meanwhile, that farm transition has started to extend out a bit too far forward. puppypaw once again in with a little bit of population control here. And once again in with 3 rams. We've seen this story many times. Is it good enough to break? MarineLorD has so many archers this time around. Can he once again hold against the push?
Yeah, he has way more archers this time around. He also has the TC fire. These Zuganus, I mean, they trade very well against the archers here, but he's actually pushing into the main TC as well, so he's getting that fire from the main TC.
It feels like they're getting wiped so quickly here, and the spearmen got drawn away by the rams. Like, you'd think he'd want to kill the archers into spears first, but the Zhuganu are king here. You win or lose by them. And it almost feels like puppypaw, maybe it's a good thing his economy is starting to creep towards castle, because we're seeing this Zhuganu mass completely fail. 30 now in retreat. It's a military lead for MarineLorD, and for the first time in 17 minutes, I think he's ready to come out of the base with the full force of his army.
Yeah, and puppypaw has to make a crucial decision here. Does he continue to play Feudal Age, or does he go for Castle Age? I mean, it's really hard to tell based on his current resources. He could do either, right?
Oh yes, and now he's going to be forced to add in more units. MarineLorD understands what's just happened here. There's only so many times you can commit a ram spam and fail before it damns you to eternal hell. Shoves out Zhuganu, simply outnumbered by the archer mass. Remember, this is not a military wing play. This is not the extra help from boot camp or the impeding threat of composite bow straight away. It is simply the raw power of economy. And Chinese, they have to turn to their tech. Astronomical clock power now on the way from puppypaw. But by the time he completes the tech up, which will be quick, the Abbasids will be on the edge of his base.
Yeah, and that's what puppypaw is trying to do here. He's not trying to take good fights. He's trying to delay MarineLorD from getting to his base, because if he can delay that enough, he gets Rancers, which just means, I mean, MarineLorD either needs to tech or he needs to go Spearman. And that's difficult to do regardless, right?
Oh yes, and tech now confirmed, but we can see MarineLorD has almost saved up himself, so consider Lancer production can be slow, but the beautiful thing with China is they can supervise that. Love this push though, you cannot allow those Zhuganu to get upgraded, they will hold you back, so he brute forces it before any real threat arrives, and with a military mass this big, puppypaw is going to lose the mass of these Zhuganu.
He definitely might, right? I mean, possibly if puppypaw can hold here, he's only down, I mean, 30 villagers. That's not too significant. I mean, considering
Chinese supervision, these extra little perks, it does help, I agree.
It does help.
But it's kind of comical when you go, he's only down 40 villages. It doesn't sound good to say, but I get where you're coming from. China does have a lot of economical perks, but they also need to be able to access their resources. So that first Lancer, critical to reset this. MarineLorD has to shuffle away, but we've seen these bad boys before. Camel Archers, a great early answer to heavily armored units before you have age 3.
I mean, that's true, and considering MarineLorD has almost 2k food per minute, he can definitely afford those. However, I mean, puppypaw already has like the Zuganus to deal with the camos, which means if he can snipe those, the Lancers are still going to be quite difficult to deal with.
We are seeing the difficulty of Lancer plus Zhug though, right? Like, archers are able to kite away, and the Zhug can't actually chase because they're slower moving than the archers here. And the horsemen have started to scout this out. This is a scary point, because I mentioned the camel archers for dealing with the lancers, they're also very good at gobbling up villages.
Yeah, and I mean, MarineLorD is doing what he could have, maybe should have been doing earlier in this game, is going towards those villages and trying to get kills there. However, I mean, he has 2 horsemen, so it's not going to be that significant, right?
No, the horsemen no, but the camel archers with 12 base damage, a bit more spooky. Military wing is about to complete in 20 seconds, and do we just see him spam lancers himself as well?
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, he only has 500 gold, so probably not initially. You want to be getting those, I mean, Castle Age Tex, maybe a Mangonel, you know, there's lots of options for MarineLorD here.
We got to shove in. Lancers are absorbing a lot of the Archer blows here. They're unable to tech up, so Zhuganoo actually getting a decent trade, but the numbers don't lie. He's heavily outnumbered in this fight, so even with the quality of units, quantity may simply be winning out. Veterans, he just got queued up from MarineLorD. The Zhuganoo mass is going to have to retreat once more. It's been a repetition in this series. Repeated crossbows, never able to break the defense. The Nested Bees could be a sticking point here, but we have to remember the Abbasids can quickly react with siege, but they're not doing it right now. He runs straight in range, has the staggered formation away from this. The Camel Riders potentially could ride in, but with this many Zhuganoo, there's no opportunity to snipe PuppyPaw's siege.
Yeah, like you mentioned, MarineLorD is actually going into the Knights here himself, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for PuppyPaw to actually deal with that without crossbowmen. I mean, Zhuganoo just are not going to trade too efficient versus the Knights, especially.
Oh, Veteran is about to complete from MarineLorD. Now, remember, he did go up with the military wing. He will have access to the composite bows, so the quicker attack speed. So Archers likely to still be spammed by him. The initial Lancers do ride out, and that is Mash-Yug. There has been no crossbows prep for this, so this might be enough to chip at him. He tries to die with the backside. Micro on point from PuppyPaw to dodge the Raiders. Nested Bees slaughtering into the center of the formation. Are they going to be able to do enough damage here? First siege weapon goes down. It's still 2 Lancers left alive. One is on death's door, but he's not being killed quick enough. The Archers are looking to brute force this down. The staggered formation has done enough, and MarineLorD will push PuppyPaw back again.
Yeah, I mean, PuppyPaw, it's not looking the best for him here. I mean, he still has the unit mass. He has some Zhuganoos. He's remassing on those Expos, getting 2 Nested Bees. If he can take a really good fight again, who knows what PuppyPaw
takes
can do.
so long though, right? Because you can't supervise for these. You have to wait the full 40 seconds, and 40 seconds feels like a long time, considering MarineLorD should now be able to dive the base or dive the fish.
Yeah, and I mean, notably, PuppyPaw still is on fish, while MarineLorD probably has a much stronger farm transition.
Look at the map. That's Sim City down there. I think he has about 35 farms now as the Abbasids.
Yeah, and
bloody hell.
I mean, that's Abbasid farms as well, right? So that's just amazing farms for him here.
39 farms, and of course, yeah, he can get agriculture for the extra 15% gathering speed, a unique thing for the Abbasids here. Dive's now going to come in, the first Lancers arrive, and look at the villages from China. Archers are going to intercept the Zhug. The idle time alone, in a game where you're 50 villages behind, how do you get out of this hole?
I don't know. I mean, even if he can defend this push, which
it's
I'm
not
not
looking
sure
like he is. It's looking like the Archer's attack speed is simply doing too much. I mean, the Zhuganoo are overkilling, right? Meanwhile, Archers, they reload quicker, they go for another shot. And these villagers, I mean, I respect it. PuppyPaw says, I can't go home. I need this food here. But it's going to get him killed. The Archers win out. They're now going to hit onto the fishing group. The second wave of Zhug is on the way, but it may simply be too little too late.
Yeah, and once these villagers start to go down, I mean, it's an extremely uphill battle on the military and the eco count. So, I mean, that's exactly what MarineLorD's doing. He's just targeting these villagers. It's not easy for PuppyPaw to replenish those at this point.
I mean, MarineLorD is almost ready to go Imperial Age.
Yeah.
And he's not going to do it, right? He's going to switch Horseman here because he sees Zhuganoo seems like the only option. Lancer spam just doesn't feel like it's going to work here. You don't have enough reliable food access to get that many ponies, and he does it anyway. Culture Wing now on the way. He's got so much dominance on the map. He's about to have dominance in the tech, and he will still look to go on the offensive.
Yeah, I mean, he has the units to support that as well. I mean, the Nested Bees going to be difficult to deal with, but he has the Lancers to deal with them as well. I mean, actually going to retreat now, but probably picking up relics that we see soon as well.
The other tricky part is PuppyPaw has no walls, right? Like, if you think about it, MarineLorD was relying quite heavily on Archers, a few Lancers. Maybe a few walls could have given that breathing room to allow him to access the food for a bit longer to get that second wave of Nested Bees, because I'm not going to write PuppyPaw out here. It's an uphill battle. But we have seen Nested Bees do some of the dirtiest and most absurd things ever in the history of Age of Empires 4.
That's true, and he's almost up to 5 here. I mean, MarineLorD is already prepping the Springolds. I mean, the thing is that MarineLorD is going to the late game, and PuppyPaw kind of can't go to the late game, right? So,
I mean, he's got the gold for it.
Very, very strong out of PuppyPaw here soon.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Like, usually you don't want to build Springles against Blocktown Nested Bees because they're too tanky, but with the extra 2 range, I mean, it's not like he's going to build his own Springles to counter you. So, I'm wondering, like, will PuppyPaw see hope? We have to remember, he can't just GG and go next. This is the final game for him if he loses here. So although it may be demoralizing to see age 4, he's got to somehow find a way out of this ever deeper hole. Archers now once again raiding to the center. Nesta Bees should be able to shove that away, so at least depletes the army somewhat, but 10 seconds out, and the vet horsemen will be ready, licking their lips and biting at the bit to be teched up. And they alone could just blitzkrieg and finish this game.
Yeah, and I don't think 1puppypaw will be very happy to see that MPH. However, he's still going to be pushing through here with this Nesta B mass. I mean, not going to be easy to deal with for MarineLorD unless you have those spring ults, right?
No, and we see the elite tech queued up, but of course he wants to take the fight right now. So MarineLorD brute forcing it. The Juganu have to stand their ground. There is a decent number of archers on the backside poking away at this, and he is peeling. Villagers are going to come with the repair. Pretty clutch here to try and keep them alive. But the split formation means the Nesta Bees, they're just shooting all over the place with potato aim. They're not doing the damage they normally would in these type of engagements, and they are beginning to splinter and break. One down, second one falls, and that is it. MarineLorD has done